No creature is more tormented than the humble Furby. What I mean by this is that Furbies have always gotten a bad rap. They're said to be annoying, creepy, and just downright menacing. But it isn't true. At some point in time, we as a culture and as a society had more room in our hearts for Furbies. And hopefully, I can convince you that there is merit to the Furby after all. We'll be exploring the road it took to create the Furby, Furby fakes, rebrands, lost media, pop culture referencing the Furby, everything. Everything I need to prove that Furbies are the ultimate toy. This is the definitive history of the Furby. During the 90s, the idea of technology being a household concept was fresh in the minds of America. In a new era where Linux, texting, and Tamagotchi are king, the road is being paved for the comfortable integration of technology and electronics into the average household. Furby creators Caleb Chung and Dave Hampton saw this road unfurling ahead of them and embarked on the laborious journey of designing and creating their own little robotic pets for the ages preceding Y2K. Chung's knowledge of technology wasn't something he was formally taught, but his creative curiosity stemming from his childhood led him to explore the arena of invention. Hampton was also an inventive child, fixing neighbors' radios, eventually picking up a job in a television repair shop, and enlisting in the Navy to study electronics. The two met in a position in a Silicon Valley toy development job, and from there, our story begins. The New York Toy Fair is one of the biggest events in the toy industry. It's like the Comic-Con for just toys. It's like the World Expo for people who are actually fun and not Elon Musk. In 1997, one of the toys to be showcased at the toy fair was the Tamagotchi, a virtual handheld pet that you cared for like a regular living, breathing pet, only with the added novelty of it being pocket-sized. However, in Dave Hampton's eyes, the Tamagotchi was lacking one crucial element that all pets should have: being able to be petted. Pet? Be pet? I don't know the right tense for that. Unfortunately, you can't pet your virtual buddies. So Chung and Hampton took to creating their own robotic pet for the children of the late 90s. Together, they created the first prototype Furby with all the elements it needed to feel like a living pet.
What's that? Me up! It's my Furby!
Furby loves you, love and touch.
Tickle me!
Furby, the first Gigapet
Oh,
you pet.
go ahead. Pet me!
Teach to say her name.
Me, Noodle.
Play games.
Peek-a-boo.
And love you back.
Uh-oh, achoo! Your Furby sneezed. Achoo! And gave mine a cold.
Furby loves you, love and touch.
Me love you.
Furby.
With the working name Furball, the early Furby spoke in a mixture of languages that Hampton had picked up while in the Navy, and was built smaller than the end product Furby. After months spent creating and designing the Furby, as well as 2 failed attempts to license it, it was time to turn to another man, Richard C. Levy. Levy's background included working in the film industry before turning to technology, later on invention, and specifically allowed himself the time to dabble in the invention of toys and games. Thanks to Levy's involvement in the project, the three were able to get the Furby a licensing deal with Tiger Electronics by 1997. Little important sidebar, Tiger Electronics at this time accepts a merger deal with Hasbro, though technically the company still exists under its own name and copyright information. Due to this merger with Hasbro, Chung and Hampton now have an abundance of resources at their fingertips to produce the Furby on a much larger scale, which they took full advantage of in the Furby's debut year.
Uh-oh, whoopee!
Me, Amanda.
Me, Mela.
Me, May. That's Furby. The more you play, the more they do.
Me, hungry.
And say, Furby grows more amazing day by day.
That's spooky. We love you.
Furby, each sold separately, batteries not included.
By October of 1998, the Furby had hit the shelves to an overwhelmingly positive reception. The first Furbies were sold at the iconic FAO Schwarz toy store in New York. They cost $35 retail, which would be almost $60 adjusted for today's inflation. 1.8 million Furbies were sold, marking their popularity for the holiday season of '98.
This Christmas, it's Furby. You likely won't spot one on store shelves, though. There's just too many people trying to find one.
Scalpers and resellers sold Furbies to desperate parents for over $100, $171 today, even auctioning them off for up to $300, which would be $513 today.
But there's 2 of them hiding in Pam Schweikowski's closet, and she's offering them up to the highest bidder.
Nobody has offered me $1,000, but I have had offers from $150 to $650.
Hundreds of dollars for a toy that feels, sneezes, and yes, it can be taught to speak English.
By 1999, 14 million units were sold, and at the end of its first 3 years of production, over 40 million were sold. It's important to understand the features of the 1998 Furby, sometimes referred to as the classic Furby. These were the very first Furbies, little owl-looking guys with big eyes, long eyelashes, a beak, a furry body, big ears, and a bushy tail. They have a black sensor in the middle of their forehead that allows them to sense the light in a room, so it knows when to do things like sleep and play peekaboo. They also have sensors in their stomachs and along their backs to respond to their owner's touch. Slowly, your Furby learns English from interacting with you, and you can feed the Furby by pressing down on its tongue with your finger or a little play spoon, I guess. I have one of these Furbies. I bought it off eBay for like $30 in 2018, but lately they can get to be a little more pricey. He came in his original packaging. The description didn't say he was overly used or damaged, but I think his main sensor is a little touchy just due to age. He tells me to turn the lights on even in broad daylight. At this point, he's going on 24 years old, so a little wear and tear is expected, at least in my eyes. These Furbies ended up being produced in 48 different colors across 8 generations, from 1998 to 2002. The first generation consisted of the leopard, snowball, wolf, witch's cat, church mouse, and skunk Furbies. The second generation had the bear, tiger, Dalmatian, owl, zebra, and giraffe Furbies. Generation 3 was the pink flamingo, frog, snow leopard, gorilla, lamb, and elephant variants. Generation 4 had the tie-dye, ladybug, dragon, bumblebee, cheetah, and coffee Furbies. Generation 5 had koala, rooster, sherbet, turtle, lizard, and kiwi variants. Generation 6 was the champagne, alligator, blue turtle, color change, husky, and tart tangerine versions. 7 had banana skin, gold stripes, mink, raccoon, red wolf, and juicy grape Furbies. The final 8th generation of Furbies was the blueberry, puppy dog, rusty dots, green bean, labrador, and penguin Furbies. In addition to these regular Furby colors, Hasbro also made 18 fresh new look Furbies, which were re-released models of previous generation Furbies with various cosmetic changes, mainly in coloration and pattern. These included the Sunrise, Fresh Dragon, Fresh Elephant, Midnight Rooster, Bandit, Fresh Tie-Dye, Fresh Tiger, Magic 8-Ball, Moon, Midnight Wolf, Fresh Turtle, Moonrest, Fresh Zebra, Fresh Patriotic, Fresh Giraffe, Fresh Wolf Plus, Fresh Raccoon, and Fresh Leopard designs. There are also 22 special edition versions, namely the Springtime, Graduation, Patriotic, Wizard, Millennium versions 1 and 2, Racing, Autumn/Witch, Tropical, Santa, Reindeer, Jester, Valentine's, Easter, Royal, President, Angel, and Bejeweled Furbies, as well as special editions for contests like the High C, Kid Cuisine, Rainbow, Pudding, and Blue Sky Furbies. A few of these special editions stood out to me, the first being the Millennium Furby. Hasbro released 2 versions of the Millennium Furby, Millennium Furby version 1 with a silver body color and blue tummy and hair color, with a release number of 50,000, and then a less rare version, Year 2000 Furby, with a blue body color and platinum tummy and hair color, with a release number of 250,000. This was to celebrate the then upcoming brain death of all technology in the year 2000. Another interesting one is the High C Furby, a special Furby that can be won from a contest that High C did. The Furby was similar to a leopard Furby like mine, except it had black hair and a white tummy. Only 5,000 were ever produced, and it is one of the rarest special edition Furbies. The one who takes the crown for the rarest Furby to have ever been produced was the Bejeweled Furby. It was a completely white Furby, similar to the Snowball model, however adorned with real platinum, 18-karat gold, and jewels. Sold in the FAO Schwartz toy store, they retailed at $100,000, which in today's money would be roughly $167,000. Part of the proceeds from the sale of these Furbies went to the world-class Hasbro Children's Hospital. Only 2 were sold. One is owned by some private moneybag, and the other is said to be on display in a museum, meaning 3 are out there somewhere unaccounted for. Since the Furby and the internet were now more available to the general public than ever, and Hasbro could make some extra money from the relatively new realm of advertising on the web, Hasbro opened up a website with the domain name of Furby.com to store all of its Furby-related content. This included games, FAQs, examples of available products, and news about the toy, with updates on new releases. Dubbed the Cliffhanger Game, this site's only game consisted of 6 animated Furby videos, in which viewers would watch part of an episode and then vote on what its ending should be. The plots usually consisted of Furbies going on little adventures. Since these episodes were released in 2 parts, uploaded only to the Furby.com website, the series is in varying states of availability and is listed on the Lost Media Wiki as partially lost media. For example, the first episode, The Big Race, is entirely lost, while the 5th episode, Furby in Egypt, has had only its 2nd viewer-voted part recovered. To capitalize on the success and cuteness of the Furby, Hasbro also marketed Furby babies from 1999 to 2002. Why it was a thing to make a baby version of everything in the 90s to early aughts toy industry, I will never understand, but anyway. The Furby babies were very similar to the regular Furbies, the only real differences being that they were smaller, spoke in higher voices, picked up on speaking English quicker, and lacked the ability to dance. They could communicate with and had a larger vocabulary than the adult 1998 Furbies. They were produced in 25 different color variations across 4 generations. Generation 1 consisted of the sunny yellow, mint green, baby blue, baby pink, snowy, and peachy colorations. Generation 2 had the primary, fresh orange, little baby blue, clown, springtime, and very purple variations. Generation 3 saw purple stripes, flower bud, confetti, wavy stripes, blue change, and curly baby Furbies. Generation 4 had sheep, seahorse, purple tip, coral, lime green, and crystal versions. One special edition was also created, the Spring Edition, not to be confused with the Springtime variant. Hasbro also released 2 forms of Furby Buddies, smaller toys that resembled the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd generations of regular adult Furbies. One form was of a beanbag Furby with a plastic faceplate, most likely done to make a little extra money, considering that the Beanie Baby craze was either going on or beginning at that point. Talking Buddies were also produced as super small Furbies with saturated color palettes. They would say 5 different preset phrases and wouldn't learn more or function as a regular Furby would. At the very tail end of the Furby craze, Hasbro decided to try a different avenue, a different, made-up, funny little creature altogether. In 2001, Hasbro created the Shelby, a little dude that looked like a Furby peeking out of a hermit crab shell.
Shelby, that's me.
Shelby, the big mouth clam.
Reading.
He's a shell-shocking sensation.
Oh, yeah.
You never know
Tickle Penny.
what he's got up his
Knock,
shell.
knock. Canoe, play with me. How rude. Excuse me.
Get ready for shell shock.
Excellent. Boring.
No Shelby. Each sold separately. Batteries not included.
They were meant to be supplemental products to the Furby, such as the Furby babies, being able to communicate with the Furbies. Their personalities were far more abrasive than the run-of-the-mill Furby, being more temperamental to your actions towards it. I hope you can't hear that siren in the background. They were only produced for about a year, so they only saw 2 generations worth of product. The first generation had the Midnight Black, Blue Moon, Aquamarine, Melon Ball, Lilac, and Lemon Drop variants. The second having the Sky, Toad, Coral, Mint, Orchid, and Ladybug Shelbies. Most people who weren't devout Furby fans simply regarded it as basically another Furby. At this point, Hasbro's sales of the Furby and all related products were dwindling, so they were officially dropped from the market altogether by 2002. Remaining products were marked down to as little as $5, which would be like $7 today, which would be a steal, and I'm mad. So why did Furby fail so quickly? It partly boils down to Hasbro's ambition with the line of products. They released so many options and additional products in such a small amount of time in order to hold onto a success that was doomed to be short-lived from the very beginning. A seasonal success given more life than it knew how to care for. However, their loss is our gain, because an abundance of unwanted Furbies then has translated into there being a fair amount to go around now. Gotta love capitalism. There was also another element possibly contributing to the oversaturation of the market and the untimely demise of the Furby. An enemy well known to the best of toys. Fake merchandise. Furby caught the attention of the toy buying market and consequently the attention of the bootlegging market. They ranged in quality and functionality when compared to the real thing, some being faithful copies, while others were just chunks of plastic or little stuffed animals vaguely shaped like a Furby. Some companies stood out enough for Hasbro to take action against them and seize product to be destroyed, while most managed to get off the hook due to there being enough difference in their product when compared to the Furby. Some of the names of these fakes are so ridiculous and funny, I literally have to point out a good portion of them. I can't miss any. For the sake of my sanity though, I'll only mention the first era, and and only ones that were intended to be close Furby ripoffs, not including strictly Furby-related merchandise. Some Furby knockoffs included Baby Birdie Bird, Baby Brainy, a knockoff meant to look specifically like the Gizmo Furby friend modeled after the Mogwai from the Gremlins movie, Baby Luby, Bobby Elf, Boomy, Burbles, Bully Noggy, Chilla Chilla, Kubi, a version of Kubi that spoke Furbish like a real Furby somehow. Danbei Original Kakei Manzai Family, I hope I'm saying that right. Danbei Original Kakei Manzai Pets, Dubby, Elves, Fairy, Fubi with a Y instead of an IE, Furbetino, Furbish like the language, Furby Buddies like the real product, Furdy version 2, Furdy 2, Gigabot, Gazebo, a form of Gizbo that was just the internals of a Furby, Gizbo 2, Goey, Groovy, Habby, Hair Baby, Hoodie Pet, my personal favorite, Jada, Jabberwacky the Interactive Space Owl, one version with a more Furby looking face, and one with the face of an abomination, Kobe the Interactive Bear, Koki, Marmo the Moon Angel, Peebo, Pooby, Popo, Herbie, a version of Herbie that looked like the special Gizmo Furby friend, a version of Herbie that spoke Furbish, Robonagi, Shaking Pocket Pet, Space Robbie 2, Space Robbie 3, spelled with an IE instead of a Y again, Space Robot, Talking Smarty, Tom Curry, who is just special and wonderful, Euphobie, Wonder Pet, like the show, and Wonder Space Robo. They stretch the entire span of the Furby lifeline, and even today, there are knockoffs of the newer model Furbies, one of which was released only years after the failure of the classic Furby. After basically 3 years of absence from store shelves, Hasbro wanted to give the Furby a new life, and a new look.
Hey, Furby! Hey, Furby! Yeah? Show me a dance. Hey, Furby! Do? Tell me a joke. Knock, knock. Hey, Furby! What? Sing me a song. Me? No. Listen.
With new Furby,
Not.
you never know what's gonna happen. You just gotta say,
Hey, Furby! I love you.
new Furby, each sold separately, batteries not included. You can find more fun at Hasbro.com. Ask a parent first.
The Emototronic Furby released in 2005 after being shown off once again at the New York Toy Fair. It had an abundance of differences compared to the original Furby. They towered over 1998 Furbies at almost twice the size of their older counterparts, lacked a hard plastic faceplate and sensor, instead having an even more uncanny valley face with a flesh-tone rubber mouth and eyelids, real plastic feet for the Furby to sit on instead of being only cosmetic, bigger ears, more detailed eyes, and a more oblong body shape overall. It also had 3 modes of activation, different from the simple on or off options you had with the regular Furby. It could be turned on, off, or set to the store shelf Try Me mode. Due to the lack of a forehead sensor, these Furbies could not see light or detect any change in the light around them. They still had sensors in their tummies and backs to be petted. Pet? Again, I'm not sure. And they still hold the functionality of being able to be fed. They're more tricky to get to interact with one another, as you must hold the stomach sensor of 2 Furbies at once to get them to blink, and only then will they begin to communicate. These Furbies were closer to interacting with humans in the way we consider it now. We give the robot a command and it responds to that command or query. It had a range of commands you could tell it to get it to play various games or say different things. To get it to listen, you would first have to say, "Hey Furby," then it would accept whatever command you asked of it. Telling it to sing me a song would prompt it to sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in either Furbish or English, depending on how far along your Furby was. Saying "tell me a joke" would lead your Furby to doing so, telling one of 7 jokes. Show me a dance would command it to sing and dance, which it would not do unless music was playing. An interesting command was telling it to tell me a story, which would tell your Furby to recall the story of its life and home on Furby Island. This would be done in either Furbish or English again, depending on how far along your Furby was. Do you want to play would get it to play red light, green light with you. Go to sleep, put the Furby to sleep, since there wasn't a light sensor to tell it when it was time to sleep. I love you would get either a purr out of your Furby, or it telling you it loved you too, depending on if it actually felt the same way. This one was kinda confusing to me, but if you told it, "I speak Furbish," it would allow you to give it a secondary command in Furbish. Learning from their mistakes with the 1998 Furby, Hasbro initially released only 4 color variations of the Emotronic Furbies, expanding it and capping it off at 16. These colors were Charcoal, Sleepy Blue, Sleepy Pink, Sleepy Purple, Strawberry Milk, Marshmallow, Passion Fruit, Fiesta, Coffee, Red Velvet, Caramel Syrup, Sand, Tropical Mango, Strawberry Swirl, Cotton Candy, and Grapesicle. There were 3 special versions called Funky Furbies. These Furbies were more wild colors than the normal Emotronic Furbies, and also had tails in addition to the normal body composition. One baby design of these Furbies was released, looking more like an infant version of the Furby rather than just a shrunken version of one. True to form, these Furbies had a limited range of actions. They retailed at $39, which would be $55 now. These suckers are really expensive if you want one nowadays because they're so rare. Finding one in working condition will cost you at the very least $120 off of eBay. Since these Furbies had an in-store Try Me mode, they came with batteries included, meaning that they were packaged with the batteries, and any found now in their boxes will likely have some kind of battery corrosion. Unlike the classic Furby, the lore surrounding the new model of Furby was made more prevalent than it had been before. They came with some information on their boxes, manuals, and care guide, where it would tell you about their history, and the Furby itself had the feature of being able to tell you a story of its home, this home being Furby Island. In 2005, Nickelodeon and Teletoon both aired a Furby movie produced by Buzzy Productions and Hasbro Entertainment to further the story of the Furby's homeland and maybe make some more sales in doing so. After its airing, the movie was sold on DVD, making it scarce but available. Following this, however, there was supposed to be a TV show taking place after the movie to be aired in 2006. The movie's ratings had been high enough to be considered a pilot for a full series, so one was eventually ordered. To be developed by Frederator Studios, popular for the Fairly OddParents and Adventure Time, Furby Island was to have a 13-episode-long first season. The first 3 episodes of the show were written and shown to Nickelodeon president at the time, Herb Scannell, who agreed to allow the company to continue work for a whole season. However, a few months later, Saima Zargami took Herb's place as president and ordered changes to be made to the show. This caused the show's production to stall and be pushed back. At the same time, Frederator was handling so many other productions that Furby Island was put on the back burner, eventually permanently. The show's production was never finished, and none of the already written episodes were ever shown to the public, earning it a spot on the Lost Media Wiki as a canceled piece of media. The only reason we know about it is due to a former Frederator employee who confirmed its existence. The scripts, production materials, and series itself are entirely lost to the public, save for the plots of the first 3 episodes. Despite these marketing efforts, these Furbies were also unfortunately plagued by low sales, but this time it was mostly due to the popularity of an alternative, the For Real Friends line of products, which I will probably make a video on sometime in the future. With the rise of an even more accessible and leisurely internet, Webkinz also took some of the spotlight off of Furbies. Again, I do hope to make a Webkinz video in the future also. The internet would not just be a home for your stuffed animal, but eventually become a home for Furby slander. While for some people, a general distaste or even fear of the Furby was a natural feeling, they didn't have the wide network of almost everyone in the upper middle class to air out those feelings to, like we do today. By 2005, the internet is really taking off as a fun, interactive network for pretty much all ages. It's kind of the first time where you can get on a widely seen platform and just say literally anything you wanted. Sometimes people believe you and sometimes they don't. Either way, the stage was set for people to absolutely drag the Furby, as well as admit to some pretty creepy findings regarding their own Furbies. You've probably heard the story about the Furby being banned from the Pentagon because ancient government workers thought that it would listen in on whatever boring thing they had going on. In fact, there were many fears and concerns surrounding the Furby that were just out in the open air, even during the production and selling of the Furby. This, paired with the ease of distrusting it due to its uncanny properties, might have also been another contributing factor in its eventual demise. The Pentagon's fear of Furbies rooted itself around 1999, a period of turmoil regarding technology, as old men began to fear the capabilities of the technological advances being made so quickly. They were specifically afraid that Furbies could record and save conversations, which not only was an uneducated assumption, but just wasn't true in the slightest. They quote-unquote learned English, not from listening to it being spoken, but from so many hours of it being played with. As the system within the Furby progressed and was played with or powered on more and more, it would begin to advance and cycle through the English it was programmed with from the very beginning. This meaning that there was an internal clock in the Furby that when you would power it on for so many hours, it would take those hours and calculate how long that would be in the Furby learning timeline and unlock more English as you went along. Furbies didn't start having the ability to listen to actual commands and speaking until 2005, and even then, you would have to say "Hey Furby" to it first to get it to start listening to you, like a Google Assistant or something today. That does kinda imply that it's always listening. Like, I don't get how that works. How does it know when not to listen to you? If it's always listening to you to hear you say the activation command. How does that work? Somebody explain that to me. So yes, there is the implication that the Furby is always listening, but it's not listening for government scheming to turn around and repeat to someone else. People just overshot the idea of the Furby's capabilities from the very beginning. Infrared technology was a big deal in the 90s, and the use of it in the Furby's central sensor led people to believe that it could do things much more powerful than simply seeing light. The Tiger Electronics president at the time got many far-fetched assumptions made about the Furby, ranging from conspiracy theories about the company producing a car-driving Furby, to ones about using their technology to launch space shuttles. The Federal Aviation Association even thought that Furbies had such powerful electronic components that, if used on a plane, they would catastrophically disrupt and interfere with the plane's equipment, leading the Furby to be added to a list of restricted items. In the same stroke as this, medical professionals feared that the same thing might happen to any electronic medical equipment around a Furby. They even took it a step back to the Pentagon realm by claiming that Furbies could hear someone giving a medical order and repeat it, accidentally triggering any voice-activated medical equipment that might hear it. I don't really think that they had that stuff back then, but I don't know. I wasn't coherent in 2005. Again, Furbies don't actually hear and repeat any given phrases, let alone someone's conversation. This myth is a little wild. Someone felt enough hate and mischief in their heart to stage an attack against the Furby. On December 19th of 1999, a press release was announced by an organization calling itself by the Humane Society of the US name, claiming that Furby's skin was made of actual cat and dog fur, specifically that samples of their fur had tested positive for cat and dog DNA. The actual Humane Society had been pushing for people to discard any actual items that they had that used real fur, so this was most likely a play on the strength of that official action. Not only is the false information not true, but it was also spread under the guise of an official institution, an imposter, if you will, trying to villainize the Furby. And don't worry, their fur is made from synthetic acrylic material, as stressed by Tiger Electronics themselves. The official Humane Society denied having any involvement in the fiasco, and the person or group of people responsible have never been found. So from personal experience, my Furby hasn't really ever done anything weird that wasn't related to his age, and I've never had any creepy coincidences happen with it either. I'm glad for that, because if something like that did happen, it's probably fair to say I'd be freaked out for a few days. This was the case for a lot of people, as they were finding that their Furbies were doing some pretty weird and far-fetched things. I would also like to mention that this is a time where there's a rise in creepypastas, so spreading creepy campfire stories on the internet is becoming a more popular pastime for younger users of the web. One person recalls an event that happened with the Furby someone had gotten them as kind of a joke gift. It was said to be a red and black model Furby, adding to the menacing quality of the story. I use menacing sparingly. The individual was asleep, woken up by a quote, demonic gravelly voice coming from their Furby. They heard the voice come from one direction, and upon looking that way, they found nothing. They then heard the voice in another location. They claim it said to them, "Hello son, I missed you." Should I have read that in a creepy voice? I don't want to do that. The individual was utterly mortified at this point, enough to take their Furby and burn it. Not only is this a wild story and probably some bored person's idea of good Reddit fuel, these types of stories just aren't in the realm of being true, because as I mentioned a lot of times before, Furbies can't string together just any words the way a person can. This individual, if any of this story is true at all, must have misheard their Furby, whose battery was running low, and jumped to conclusions. There's also the classic, my Furby had no batteries in it, yet it still turned on in the middle of night story. Since there are so many recollections of these types of occurrence, I won't get into any specifics. Instead, I'll explain why this happens. One or all of three elements are usually present in every Furby horror story. Turning on in the middle of night, functioning without batteries, and taking on a quote-unquote evil voice, or personality. First of all, Furbies turn on in the middle of the night if they are not put to sleep properly. To make sure your Furby is asleep, hold your hand over its central sensor in order to get it to think it is dark. After a few seconds, the Furby will start to snore, and on the third or fourth time it snores, it falls asleep, and won't wake up again unless it is stimulated. For me, I can just sit mine somewhere and he'll fall asleep because he always thinks it's dark anyway. The reason why Furbies sometimes are able to function for a short period after their batteries have been removed is that they have a power reserve system that allows them to do so. I think this is because removing the batteries from a Furby can cause a little bit of electrical problems, so the goal of reserving some power is to allow the owner to replace the batteries without the Furby actually powering off, avoiding any issues that might happen in between changing them. This isn't your Furby being possessed, just being a little user-friendly. Lastly, your Furby will indeed turn evil, only if you neglect it. I wouldn't even describe it as evil, just angry. Your Furby will take on a disgruntled voice if you don't pay any attention to it. So when people tell you their Furby sounds like a demon, just let that tell you that they're a neglectful Furby parent. Some people might ignore their Furby for years, much like Hasbro did up until 2012. For 7 long years, the Furby license saw no new products. That was until 2012, when Hasbro finally released another wave of newly designed Furbies.
Meet Furby!
Party time! You never know what your Furby's going to do.
Me love night.
Oh, baby!
Have even more fun with Furby
Yeah, me.
when you go to Furby.com. Ask a parent first. Each sold separately, batteries not included. iPhone and free Furby app not included or required for play.
Furby 2012, because Furbies always have to be around when the world is supposed to end. These Furbies really stood out from their predecessors because, unlike the emotronic Furby's eerily living look, Hasbro leaned into a semi-realistic design more similar to the 1998 Furby. With the only real difference being their LCD eyes, these Furbies promised to achieve the level of emotion that the emotronic Furbies were supposed to. This, paired with an app to use with the Furby, as well as the function that allowed your Furby to respond to its tail being pulled, brought it to life in a way that no Furby had been before. Some critics even claimed it was the best Furby to be produced at the time of release, despite being made from no parts produced by Tiger Electronics. These Furbies are notably the first Furbies to be marketed to have several personality traits, such as Care Bears or My Little Pony toys were. The only caveat was that you never knew which personality your Furby would adopt. It all depended on the way you interacted with it. The 2012 Furby had 6 possible personalities it could adopt. The first was the easiest, as this was the default personality. As soon as it was powered on, the Furby would take on a default malleable personality, similar to the blank slate personality of the 1998 Furby. It is a calm Furby with a friendly and charming personality. You can revert to this base personality by holding your Furby upside down and holding its tongue, a carryover function from the previous versions of the Furby. Another personality was the tough personality. This Furby type got mad very quickly. It was achieved by overfeeding or exerting too much force upon your Furby, such as by shaking it. Another personality was the pop star personality. Pop star Furbies acted sort of like the funky Furbies, kind of outspoken and highly interactive. This personality was unlocked by playing your Furby music or using the app with it for a long time. Another variant was the chatterbox personality. These Furbies acted like a stereotypical teenage girl from the 80s, talkative and bubbly. You unlock this personality by talking to your Furby a lot. Another was the princess personality, a Furby who was very friendly and sang a lot, similar to the emotronic baby Furby. This personality was reached by constantly petting or tickling your Furby. The final possible personality was the crazy personality. This personality was comedic and funny, a jokester, and sorta wild. It laughs constantly at almost any stimulant it is presented with. You get this personality by repeatedly shaking and pulling the tail of your Furby. These Furbies saw a release of 2 generations over a year. Each generation had 2 parts, so basically there were 4 waves of these Furbies. Each Furby had a different kind of build and its facial makeup and proportions, as well as different colorations. Generation 1 had the Yeti, Voodoo, Phoenix, Black Magic, Sprite, and Taboo Furbies. Generation 1.5 had the Pink Puff, Green Man, Plum Fairy, and Twilight Furbies. Unlike the first generation and a half of the 2012 Furby, the Furbies made after this had these weird troll-like hair tufts on their heads. Generation 2 had the Starry Night, Rain Cloud, Orangutan, Laguna, Cotton Candy, and Punky Pink Furbies. The final generation, Generation 2.5, had the Black Cherry, Lightning Zap, Bermuda, and Pink Flare Furbies. The only answer I could find to how much these Furbies cost didn't make a lot of sense. The most common answer was that they cost a retail price of $54, which would be $66 now. If you bought a Furby when they came out in 2012, let me know, because that just seems like a lot of money for something that wasn't necessarily that sought after. These Furbies also had a large range of accessories you could buy for them, which was cool, I guess. There were these little chairs you could buy for them to sit in. They're pretty cute. The baby versions of these Furbies were the Furby Party Rockers, which is a very time-appropriate name for them, I guess. It's Party Rock is. Furby Party Rockers served as friends for your Furby, who would talk and play with them. They each had different personalities and were also compatible with most of what Furbies could do with the Furby app. They were kinda just like the watered-down McDonald's toy versions of the 2012 Furby, with limited electronic components. They're small little puffballs of a creature, each with 6 very different facial features, ears, hair, and expressions. There were 6 variants released in 2 generations. The first generation had Fussby, Loveby, Twitby, and Scoffby. The second had Nerdby and Whitby. Their names were sort of a reflection of their personalities. The release of these strange friends marked the end of the Furby 2012 era and made room for a more streamlined release of the newer model, the Furby Boom.
Woo! So exciting! Baby? Oh, it's baby, it's baby, it's baby! Ow, woo! My best baby ever!
Each sold separately. Batteries not included. iPad and free Furby Boom app not included. Ask a parent before going online.
The Furby Boom was pretty much an updated version of the Furby 2012, only with a more visually interesting design, as well as more dependence on the app. Unlike past Furby incarnations, these Furbies didn't have a name they came with or an implied name, rather, you would name them in the app. Design differences included patterned fur, more organic faceplate shapes, and plastic feet. Their light sensors were also bigger than the 2012 versions. They're also very, very round. Released in 2013 with the slogan, "A new generation is hatching," and retailing at around $30, the Furby who survived the Mayan calendar end of the world was here, presumably to stay and be the ultimate Furby. Furby Boom is pretty much a similar concept to Caleb Chung and Dave Hampton's inspiration at the time behind the Furby's initial creation, the Tamagotchi. With the Furby Boom app, you could link your real, tangible Furby with a system within the app that allowed it to lay an egg, which would hatch into a Furbling after a certain period of time. These Furblings were basically a Tamagotchi in the way that you cared for and played with them. These little baby Furbies didn't necessarily take any specific physical resemblance to their parent, and with one Furby being able to lay 50 Furbling eggs, there was a range of color, style, and personality variations. As for the variations of your physical Furby Boom, there were 15. Patterns included blue diamonds, diagonal stripes, lightning bolts, orange stars, peacock, pink cubes, pink hearts, pink and blue hearts, polka dots, purple houndstooth, purple waves, straight stripes, triangles, blue waves, and zigzag stripes. 3 special editions of these Furbies were also released, including Easter, festive sweater, and metallic blue variants. These Furbies are horrendously ugly. I'm not joking. They look like ugly knitted sweaters. That's what they have the patterns of. The only passable design in a non-eye straining solid color was the metallic blue variant, whose name came from its metallic faceplate. Even then, it was a special edition, meaning that it wasn't as widely available as the other vomit-inducingly patterned Furby Boom freaks in the general population. Hasbro must have caught on to this because in 2014, they released the Furby Boom Crystal series, a group of 6 Furbies with designs similar to the metallic blue Furby. They had shiny faceplates and ears, as well as an ombre fur design that was arguably much easier on the eyes, save for the rainbow variant, which had diagonal rainbow stripes running across its body. Even then, I prefer this over most of the other Furby Boom designs. It's really not that bad compared to them. The other 5 colorations included the green-blue, yellow-orange, pink-purple, purple-blue, and orange-pink Furbies. I really like these Furby designs. I think that they're the better design out of the 3 incarnations between 2012 and 2014. A special Star Wars variant of the Furby Boom was Furbaka, which is exactly what it sounds like. Chewbacca as a Furby. Hasbro had to use a license to get some more attention on these Furbies, and if you wanted a Furbaka today, then you're probably out of luck, because they sell for around $120 to $200, similar to an emotronic Furby today. At some point, Hasbro also found it profitable to sell its physical Furblings, each Furby having a Furbling that matched its coloration, for both the mainline and Crystal series Furbies. Some variations didn't get their own matching Furbling. These were the Lightning Bolts, Pink Hearts, Purple Waves, and Festive Sweater Furbies. It's considered that the Metallic Blue and Easter variants didn't get their own special matching Furbling, but the 2 special editions were the Gold and Pastel Furblings, which, although not matching their parents' design directly, played on the same concepts, enough to where I would consider them to be their Furblings. They played like any other Furby buddy, with pre-recorded lines and reduced features overall, this time with lenticular eyes instead of digital ones. At the end of the line with this generation of Furby, Hasbro finally threw in the towel and called it a close on the beloved Furby. Or so that's what we'd hoped.
It's Furby Connect. Now, Furby gets updates from the app and reacts to new content, like funny videos.
Look, cat video.
Games and songs.
I'm only one call away.
And with regularly changing content, what will Furby do next? Each sold separately, device and batteries not included. Ask a parent to download the app, sleep mask included.
Bet you didn't think it could get any worse. In 2016, Hasbro went all in on the app concept, introducing the Furby Connect, which had a vast new range of options with app play and physical play alike. These Furbies looked roughly similar to the Furby Boom, playing on some of the same physical shapes in the ears and body. Big floppy looking ears and a rotund body. A perfect little friend. In my honest opinion, although these Furbies are the furthest away from the look of the original Furby, they are one of the most inviting looking variations. They really do look like little creatures, harkening back more to the design of the Emototronic Furby, with their eyes and mouth not bound together by a faceplate. They were a little bigger than past Furbies, with bigger eyes and ears, and a smaller beak. Their eye sensors, which were replaced with buttons in this variation, are also less noticeable by blending them into the design itself with a coloration similar to the Furby's color. Coming in more palatable solid colors than their recent predecessors, you could get one of these cute little guys in blue, teal, pink, magenta, and coral. Another feature that I really like visually is a little antenna on top of their heads. It was a feature that the Furby had never had, but I think it makes them more endearing. This antenna was a sensor, one of many that this Furby was jam-packed with. It would change color when you would move your Furby around. Other sensors included the classic tummy, tongue, and back sensors, in addition to moving ears and basic motion sensors. It also had the tail pulling feature from the 2012 Furby. The Furby Connect also had some new features, including side sensors making the creature able to be squeezed, and sensors that picked up specific movement in all dimensional directions instead of the traditional weight sensor to detect being turned upside down. Unlike a traditional Furby, this variant would mainly learn its interactions with the world from activities in the app. Using the Furby Connect World app, your Furby could sing songs, react to videos, learn new vocabulary, and build its unique personality. Undoubtedly the most cringe Furby you can get your hands on, this funny little critter can sing Kids Bop versions of all your favorite songs from 2016, I say with gritted teeth because I can't think of a better way to permanently fix a date to something. The Furby also reacts to memes, because we all know those were super funny in 2016. You also fed your Furby and let it use the potty in the app, so basically it played with the idea of having the best of both worlds between a Tamagotchi and a real pet. It can be petted, I still don't know. And looked at lovingly with all the responsibility part tucked away in the digital realm. All these great features made this the most expensive Furby at its retail price, selling at a shelf value of $100! I wouldn't have been able to afford that even if I knew about them then. That would be $117 now, although if you really wanted one, you'd likely end up paying well over that amount. You'd also have to grapple with the outdated app if you choose to use it. One of the good things for the longevity of this Furby is that you do have some kind of option to use the app to care for it or not. If you were brave enough, these Furbies could be hacked and some of the features from the app like feeding could be controlled from a third-party source app. Since the app and the Furby were discontinued, the app has fallen into disarray and has many glitches. It also isn't very widely available across devices due to its becoming outdated. Currently, the Hasbro website that the company has set up for the Furby license displays information about the Furby Connect, with no new word on whether this is the end or if any new adaptations are a possibility for the future. So for now, the Furby Connect is buried in its little Furby grave, such as its ancestors have all ended up, and the Furby in general has fallen out of popularity. But like I said before, the Furby is a humble creature, and has found itself a little sliver of remaining spotlight to be held. Although the retail popularity of the Furby has undeniably declined, the internet has recalibrated its attitude toward the beloved toy, and the general media has made it an icon. Whether it be in a positive or a negative interpretation, the Furby's influence can't be missed. In December of 2016, 6 months after the release of the Furby Connect, a game was released on Steam that featured a Furby-like creature, a spoof of the classic toy.
Tattletale, that's me! Treats. Wow!
Mama's coming!
Time for eat!
Tattletale, the title character of the game, was similar to a Furby, except his features were a little more mammal-like than the birdie features of the classic Furbies, looking more like a cat in this way. In this horror-based survival game, you play as a young child in 1998, the release year of the classic Furby, who seeks to open his Christmas gift a few days early. In doing so, you obligate yourself to take care of your new friend by brushing, feeding, and playing with him, before returning him to his box at the end of the night, all while avoiding being caught by Mama Tattletale, who just wants her baby back. The game features many references to the atmosphere surrounding the classic Furby upon its own release, such as commercials, the care pattern of the Furby, and the popularity of the Furby when it was sold in 1998. Another internet phenomenon that involves the Furby is the customization of existing Furbies. If you do manage to get your hands on a Furby, you can tear it apart and give it new fur, new eyes, or simply accessorize it to your liking, with many articles and video guides telling you how to do so. There are even classic Furby fur patterns available on the internet for you to use to fashion a new hairstyle for your Furby. Many retailers also sell parts specifically made for Furby customizing, such as faceplates, eye chips, and accessories. Classic Furbies are most usually used to customize since the build and electronic makeup of new Furbies make it less easy to disassemble and put back together for an everyday guy. For instance, a classic Furby can be almost completely changed from its faceplate to its fur. Emotronic Furbies can't have their fur removed, but that doesn't stop you from cutting it, lightly dyeing it, or otherwise adding to what's already there. Furby Boom models and onward can't be easily stripped of their fur, and the added roadblock of the electronic eyes leaves less room for creativity in that sense, but I've seen people figure it out. So in most cases, this is considered the end of the life for Furbies. They do have some popularity now, but it's nothing like what it used to be. While pretty much every variation of Furby is still purchasable online from retailers like eBay and the like, it's not a very common purchase as they're very scarce depending on what model you'd like. There aren't any being produced currently, and as of 2022 there's no plans to produce anymore. It's kind of a sad ending for something that lasted so long, and so many variations. But on the other hand, it's also very nice that so many generations got to grow up with the Furby, and that so many decades worth of time were covered by the life of the Furby. For most people, Furbies are kind of creepy and off-putting, but for some of us, they're our best friends, and their memory will always live on in our hearts. I know that's how I feel, as I put in the dedication to buy myself a Furby, and even though I don't really play with him every day like I used to, I still look at him with a lot of love in my heart and appreciate him for what he is, and how long of a time he got to survive. Hi, I would just like to thank you for watching the video. I know that this is probably my longest video yet. This clocked in a very long time, so I do appreciate it, especially if you stayed to the end of the video. Like I said in my last one, that one was a little longer, and now this one is even longer, so it's even more of a feat that you're hearing this right now because it was a very long video. I do know that people actually like longer videos, so I might aim to try to make my scripts a little longer. The only reason I was able to talk so long about Furbies is because they have so many iterations and so many specificities that I could go in and like talk about really mundane things. Kind of like how I brought up the lost media and the social aspect of Furbies, like how the climate was around their acceptance and stuff like that. But thank you again for watching. Hopefully I'll have another exciting video like this, something a little longer. But if you have any suggestions, please leave them for me. I always love getting suggestions. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.